Hello, everyone. Wow, there are a lot of you. I'm gonna wait just for a couple minutes to get everybody signed in, then we'll get going. Hi, Monty. Hi, Perkins. How's everybody's summer? Are you guys ready to come back? Or are you guys like dreading coming back? I'm ready then closer to the holidays. I love it. So ready to be back. Yes, yes. It's almost like at the end of the year, you just like cannot wait to get away. And then once it's like going out on a date with your husband when you have small kids, like you're like, oh, thank God. Can the babysitter like come 5 minutes early? And then like 20 minutes into your day, you're like, I kind of miss my kids. It's kind of the same thing. Hi, Enid.
Hello, everybody. We're going to do it a little bit different this time since I think a lot of you were on the webinar earlier this morning and we were having some issues with the sound, and it's really our internet. So there's not a lot we can do, but if we don't have the video playing as well, sometimes that helps. So that's why we're here together. And once Callie gets started, we're going to take the video down. So you'll just see the PowerPoint and then we can bring the video back up again. So that's why you can see me.
Okay, maybe we'll wait 2 more minutes, see if anybody else is gonna sign on and then we'll get going. Okay, so I am gonna go away. We're gonna do PowerPoints and then I'll be back at the end because we're gonna have a discussion time and idea sharing and different things like that. So I will be back, but let's go ahead and get our PowerPoint started. So whole grain tips and tricks. We all know that probably this next year is going to be just as tough as last year as far as like getting things in. And not only that, but we are also looking at um, going to 80% whole grain rich, which is posing some challenges, but not to worry because we are going to look at some ways to hopefully make it easier for you all, and then also expand your menus by adding variety through whole grains. So you're not just serving brown rice and bread the whole time. So we'll go ahead and get into it. Um, let's see here. If I can switch the screen. Okay, so we all know that effective July 1, at least 80% of the weekly grains offered have to be whole grain rich. So this is a big change from where we were at 50%. And I think moving into the next year, it does cause a lot of questions to be asked as far as how are we going to do this? What does this look like? Are we going to have to start making everything from scratch? You know, a lot of schools were having trouble getting bread bids back. So we're just going to look at some ways to maybe simplify it, and talk about maybe some options, and then also to get some ideas if any of you all are doing anything that has been especially great in your school districts. So there is maybe some confusion around whole grain. It's not that 80% of your flour that's used has to be whole grain. It's that 80% of what you are serving as far as your grains have to be whole grain rich, right? So that means that at least 51% of the grains used in that item have to be whole grains. So if you have a recipe that calls for 2 cups of flour, you have to have 51% of that whole grain. So 1 cup can't be whole grain and 1 cup be white. It just has 1 cup plus a little bit has to be whole grain, or 1 cup and a quarter has to be whole grain, and then you can use white flour to make up that rest of the 3/4. So whole grain rich, right? Whole grain rich. And one of the things to look at when we're talking about whole grain rich is the ingredient list on the label of what you have purchased. And here's a great question to ask: is the whole grain listed as the first ingredient in the list of ingredients on the package? If the answer is yes, that meets the whole grain definition, right? So that's the really easy short answer, because ingredients listed on a label go from most used to least used. So if that whole grain is up at the top, it's the majority of that product is composed of the whole grain, right? So we have this really great slide that I love so much that offers a lot of answers and is like a quick check for whole grain rich items. This slide was actually in the Cooking for Kids summer training booklet that we put out this year. So if you have one of those, then you'll have this page. But this page is also on our website that is a resource that you guys can look at. Okay. So like we said, if the first ingredient in the list of ingredients is whole grain flour or whole grain item, then yes, it is whole grain rich. If not, you just go through these steps to eliminate any sort of question about whether it's whole grain rich or not. Okay. So let's talk about breakfast recipe ideas, because we know that breakfast is one of those, is the meal with the most grains, right? We have, oh goodness, cereals and breads and all these sorts of things that we can serve. It's probably also going to be the hardest one to think about having a lot of variety on. So we kind of want to present a couple ideas to you guys as far as variety goes. So sunshine bread and cowboy bread, these are just basics that we've been doing for forever. The sunshine bread is a really great way to incorporate a red orange vegetable into your breakfast. It's delicious. One thing I love about the sunshine bread is that you could put chocolate chips or raisins or dried cranberries or anything in it to just flavor it according to the season that you're in, and it's really delightful. And then the cowboy bread, I love that crumb topping that goes on it, and it's a really tasty treat. And these are really great too, because these can be done in muffin form and also in bread form on a sheet tray. So we have both of these recipes on our Cooking for Kids website, and we'll talk a little bit more about utilizing them in a different way as we go forward. The other thing I wanted to talk about is biscuits. I am a little bit of a biscuit snob, and I have not come across a biscuit that is whole grain from a manufacturer that I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So we do have a Cooking for Kids recipe for a biscuit, and they are not hockey pucks. And they are especially delightful if you do a drop biscuit rather than rolling them out. They are whole grain rich. And I know you're saying, I don't want to have to make 300 biscuits. I don't either. But if you have a slow day and you can make up a biscuit recipe real quick in your mixer and drop them on a sheet tray and throw them in the freezer, they do keep for a long time in the freezer, and you just pull them out as you need them. And also remember, if you're serving it with something else, you divide those numbers. So if you have cereal and you're doing a biscuit for breakfast and you have 300 kids that are eating, you don't have to do 300 of each, right? You do, 150 biscuits and 150 cereal. So it makes the numbers a little less daunting if we think of it like that. The other thing is this apple cinnamon baked oatmeal. And I know that a lot of schools don't like to do oatmeal and have an issue with making oatmeal as far as like when they first make it, it's like that nice, beautiful, thick cereal consistency. And then by the end of the line, it's like wallpaper paste, right? This kind of eliminates that variation of consistency and quality. It's a baked oatmeal. It's super easy to do. I love this recipe because you can make it up the day before and put it in your walk-in, and it cuts the cooking time in half the next day because oats continue to soak up liquid over time. So you're basically doing overnight oats in your walk-in and then just reheating it in the morning. The other thing that I love about this recipe is that you cut it and scoop it out, and it doesn't stick to the trays and make it unbelievably hard to wash these trays, because that is another complaint that I personally have with oatmeal, is that it's hard to wash off things. And that's not having a lot of staff or having staff shortages this year. Baked oatmeal will be your best friend. The other thing that I wanted to talk about as far as oatmeal goes is you can make individual grab and go overnight oats in a cup. And it would be just a very simple overnight oats recipe with fruit and everything on top. And you just leave that in your walk-in overnight and you have a cold cereal in the morning to serve as a grab and go item. Which is really popular right now. If you go to a Starbucks or a Panera or something, they usually have some sort of overnight oat option. And the great thing about this is you can flavor it however you want. You could put flaxseed in, or you could put sunflower seeds, or any sort of fruit, or flavor it with syrup or cinnamon or pumpkin spice or whatever, and really add a lot of variety just through changing some of the flavoring items in that recipe, which is really awesome. So the other thing to think about as far as breakfast goes is granola and granola bars. Of course, we can buy granola, which is super easy, but we can also make granola, another easy option, and it freezes really well. And if we don't use all that granola, we can then take that recipe and turn it into granola bars. Again, these recipes are on the Cooking for Kids website. And both the granola and the granola bars are a great option for grab and go. And like I said, you can make these in huge batches and freeze them and pull them out as you need them. So then it's not consuming a lot of your time throughout your day and a lot of your labor as far as, having to make everything from scratch the morning of. So the other thing that we can look at is muffins. And muffins are just one of those things that everybody loves. But you can add so much variety to your menu with muffins. You can also hide a lot of things in muffins. So fruits and even sweet potatoes or carrots or something like that, you can hide in muffins. And muffins can be frozen and pulled out as needed, or they're really easy to make up the morning of and bake. And it gives that beautiful, fresh muffin, delightful smell to your cafeteria every morning. And like I said, you could do blueberry, you could do a pumpkin spice, you could do peaches, strawberries, chocolate chips, kind of whatever. There's actually a new bread muffin recipe that we came up with this summer we don't have a picture of, but it's a chocolate muffin. And so it would hide a lot of that whole grain look as well. And we'll email that recipe out so you guys will have that. But it's a great way to hide your whole grain, the look of the whole grain, the darkness of the whole grain in a muffin that is already dark, like chocolate, right? So the French toast bread pudding is one of those recipes that utilizes leftovers. And those of you who know me know how much I love using leftovers. It's one of my favorite topics. And if you have been to summer training, you know that I devote a long time to talking about leftovers. I hate throwing away food. Child nutrition programs don't have enough money to begin with. And every food product that we throw in the trash is money, right? And so we have to be really, well, I feel like we have an added responsibility to utilize these leftovers in a great way. So bread pudding is one of those ways. So if you have leftover toast or a couple of leftover buns or different things like this, hot rolls, save them, put them in a bag, throw them in the freezer. And once you have enough, you can make this French toast bread pudding. And it's just utilizing stale bread, which is really great. I think, again, really great way to use up leftovers. The French toast bread pudding is also a great way to like hide other things in. So if you have leftover blueberries that you don't have enough to serve on your salad bar, or have extra from your fruit cups, you can throw it in the bread pudding. Canned peaches, apples, pretty much everything. You could do a chocolate French toast bread pudding. So hiding some fruits and vegetables and leftovers in some of these things is going to be your best friend, and also adding a lot of variety to your menus while doing that. Okay, so we talked about breakfast. Now we're going to talk about some non-breakfast recipe ideas. Like I said, I think breakfast is a really tough one to talk about. But then when we talk about lunch, switching gears here, I think a lot of us think about hamburger buns, sliced bread, brown rice, and the bad word, pasta, whole grain pasta. But there's some other options, or using these in other ways that we can talk about that will add a lot of variety and kind of get rid of maybe some of the redundancy or seeming redundancy on your menus. So the first thing is these lo mein street noodles. I love these because you can hide vegetables in them, and I do love hiding vegetables in things. But also it is something other than brown rice that you can serve with all your Asian dishes. I am not a huge rice fan. I will choose noodles over rice any day of the week. So if we can add a lot of variety by using our whole grain spaghetti and turning it into lo mein noodles, that'll be a really great thing. The other thing with this is you could put carrots and onions and peppers and cabbage and different things like that in there. And that's actually introducing vegetables to your kids in other ways that aren't necessarily like in their face, you have to eat this. It's mixed in with something. You don't have to use these large julienne pieces of pepper. You could use diced up very small pieces, but just try to get as many veggies in there as possible to try to introduce those veggies and get those kids to eat well. So the other thing is pad thai, which is very similar. The recipe is very similar to the lo mein street noodles, but it's actually an entree, and we have a recipe for chicken pad thai and beef pad thai. I love the sauce on this. It's so flavorful. And just making sure that we're presenting it in a way that's something new and different. And this is actually an entree because it has, you know, your grain and your veg in it. So presenting it in a different way. The other thing is chicken fried rice. We could do a lot with fried rice. I think that Asian build your own bowls could definitely happen, and have, you know, sriracha on the line or different things like that. And you could have different meat offerings and different things like that to create a lot of variety on your menu without, you know, having to order in a whole bunch of extra stuff. Then we all know that we've seen this slide before. right? And this is on purpose. We all know that we can only serve so much grain-based desserts each week. And my favorite part of each meal is dessert. But we can present whole grains in a dessert way without serving dessert. And a couple of those ways is a sunshine bread, a cowboy bread, this midnight muffin recipe that we'll be sending out. If you do that as a bread, it looks almost like a cake. And we really do have to take advantage of every opportunity to increase the whole grains that we're serving, and also present them in a way that's really delicious, and maybe that they don't really think that they're eating whole grain, they're actually getting a treat. One thing that you can also do with this is put together some sort of yogurt glaze with yogurt and syrup, or yogurt and powdered sugar, just a little bit of something to drizzle on top of it to make it look kind of like an icing, without adding a lot of added sugar, which is really great. So utilizing what we kind of think of as breakfast items as actual dessert items. I say that in quotations, because it will count as your whole grain and not as a dessert, but you're serving it as in the concept of a dessert, which is actually a treat for the kids. So making sure that we're making whole grains fun as a treat, rather than just something that you have to have on your plate. Because we all know that if we're told that we have to have something, we don't really want to do it, right? So making sure that, again, we're serving these in a way that's really fun and exciting. So I mentioned the bad word earlier, whole grain pasta, but I want to talk a little bit about a couple ways to cook pasta that will make it a little less terrible. So one thing that we can do is par cook it the day before, shock it with ice water and rinse it really well. And what we're doing there is we're rinsing out all that starch, right? And whole grain has a lot more starch than refined white flour does. And so by rinsing all of that off, we're making it less sticky and gooey and slimy. And that is one of the biggest concerns from that whole grain, is the texture is really terrible and it's very gooey. The other thing we're doing it by par cooking, the other thing we're doing by par cooking it is that we're ensuring that we're not overcooking it, right? So the next day we're just kind of reheating rather than cooking. And that will help as well with the texture and hold time of the pasta itself. Now, if we're serving pasta and soups, we don't necessarily have to cook the pasta in the soup or add the pasta right away to the soup, because when we add the pasta to the liquid, the pasta continues to swell, and it will take all of that liquid and absorb it. So then you'll lose all your soup liquid, like your chicken noodle soup. If you put all your pasta in there, your liquid will disappear, right? So one way to do this to ensure that the texture of your pasta is maintained to the highest quality, and that you're not overcooking, and that you're not losing all your liquid in the soup, is to add the pasta separately from the soup. So if you ladle the soup into the bowl and then put the pasta in afterwards, that is one way to kind of preserve the quality of your pasta. The other thing that I'll say about cooking pastas, if you're going to do it on the stovetop, the more you stir, the more starch you release, right? So we don't want to be a stirrer. We all know this person, I myself love to stir things. And I have to fight the urge to stir pasta, right? So we put it in the boiling water. We stir it once to make sure that it's not sticking to the bottom or the sides or to each other, the pasta. And we stir it once and then let it set, right? Because the more we stir it again, the more starch is released, and that starch is really slimy and gooey. And that's going to be that thickening coating on the outside of that pasta that's going to give it that really terrible and almost slimy texture, right? So no stirring, do not stir it. If you see somebody stirring it, grab the spoon out of your hand and tell them don't stir it. So we talked a lot about oats But there are so many other grains that we can talk about as it pertains to whole grains. We talked about oatmeal and granola bars and overnight oats. But we can also serve a cornbread, right? We can also do, you know, a polenta. We could also do all these other things with corn that is not whole grain flour and it's not oats. The other thing on here is enchiladas and using corn tortillas. And a lot of you, I feel like a lot of first reactions are, well, kids don't like corn tortillas. Well, if they go to their local Mexican restaurant and order enchiladas, does it come with a wheat tortilla? Nope, it comes with a corn tortilla. So if we're doing like an enchilada bake or an enchilada like lasagna style, go ahead and use corn tortillas and not wheat tortillas. I love a nacho bowl, and using chips as your grain is one way to do it instead of a whole grain tortilla. You could do street tacos, and those are traditionally done on corn tortillas and are becoming more and more popular, and more common as you go out to different restaurants. Even Chipotle offers corn tortillas now. And then the other thing is to think outside of rice. Lo mein noodle, a cornbread, a you know, a cowboy bread or something like that instead of rice as your grain. But while we're talking about rice, doing something like a fried rice, you could take the fried rice recipe and take all the herbs and spices, and just not add the chicken, but still have that, you know, garlic, ginger, hoisin sauce that you make, and put that on top of your rice and have a flavored rice. There's another recipe for brown rice on the website that's cilantro lime that adds a lot of really great flavor. So just think about jazzing up the rice rather than just having plain steamed brown rice. How much flavor does plain steamed brown rice have? Zero. So we want to add something to it to make it a little bit more palatable and a little bit more recognizable for these kids. Because when they go to their favorite Mexican restaurant or their favorite Asian restaurant or even Chipotle, none of those places have just plain rice. It's always flavored Mexican rice or fried rice or, you know, different things like that. It always has like an accompanying sauce or something. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is bento boxes. This is a really easy way to get all your components in one spot. That's really easy. And we'll see on this next slide, we have a lot of options for grains as far as granola, muffins, toast squares, crackers. One thing that I have seen is toasting your whole grain tortillas with a little bit of garlic powder. And that has been really great. I do not love a whole grain tortilla, I'll be perfectly honest, but I really loved these toasted tortilla chips. It was almost like a pita chip that was really great. A trail mix. I love a trail mix and just incorporating your whole grains in there. A pasta salad, goldfish, whole grain crackers, different things like this that are really easy options to get your whole grains in a bento box, or like a one and done situation. The other thing that came to mind was they have really great whole grain English muffins that I actually buy for home because I think they don't have much taste difference between the white and the wheat. And that would be a really great option. You could definitely use those whole grain English muffins for a build your own pizza bento box, kind of like a Lunchable situation, which would be really great. And then of course, for those that are a little more adventurous, quinoa is definitely a great whole grain option. And there's several recipes on the Cooking for Kids website for that. Okay. So before I do the survey, I kind of want to chat with you all a little bit as far as what are some questions you guys have or suggestions or things that you all are doing in your schools that it works really well, or concerns that you guys might have moving forward with going to 80% whole grain rich that maybe we can chat about. I think thinking outside the box as far as like doing a I love like a cheddar cornbread with like actual corn kernels in it, maybe some like green chilies or something. And I think that that can be really exciting and an easy way to incorporate something new and exciting for the kids into a recipe. Anybody have any questions? I know some of you guys are doing some pretty awesome things as far as your whole grains go. Or is anybody making their own biscuits currently? Nobody? Nobody wants to talk to me? Okay. Yeah, if we, oh, you're just saying we do nachos and rice every day. I like that. There are so many things that you can do with nachos and rice and kind of making burrito bowls and everything. I think that we underutilize what kind of the fast casual restaurants are doing around it. So like nacho bowls, burrito bowls, different things like this. I don't know if any of you all have seen this new concept that popped up, Kava, that is kind of like build your own Mediterranean. So they have like all these composed salads and stuff, but it's on either quinoa or rice or different things like this. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. So there's this question about a burrito bowl recipe. So that is something that we can put together, but what I really encourage you all to do is like, there are recipes on Cooking for Kids that have like a nacho recipe or something, and you can kind of take and deconstruct that and just have like your single offering. So if you do, you know, your ground beef and then your salsas and your chips and different things like that, you can menu them separately. But if you're looking for something, just email us and I can put something together on that. So, and then noodles, always a good option. I love noodles. I think that sometimes, well, especially, I don't think that sometimes, I know that all the time, whole grain pasta has a really bad rap. And I think that by like par cooking and rinsing, I know that that's an extra step. But when we're talking about food quality and whether this food actually gets eaten or gets thrown in the trash, I think it's pretty key to, you know, really just try all outlets when it comes to getting these kids to eat some of these things. So I love that you guys are making your own homemade rolls. What a labor of love that is. It's a lot, I know, and I want to applaud you for doing that. But if I want to encourage you too, if you're making your own homemade rolls, biscuits are much easier. Biscuits are a lot easier than rolls to make and take a quarter of the time. So if you're doing rolls from scratch, you can absolutely do biscuits from scratch. Plop them on a pan really close together, throw them in the freezer, pull them out as you need them. It's a really great way to incorporate that. And I mean, who doesn't love biscuits and gravy day, right? Right? I do love the KFC bowls. I think those are brilliant and the kids love them. I mean, I don't eat them mixing all that stuff together myself. But if the kids are going to eat it, like it's brilliant to do. And that utilizes a lot of what you guys are already doing on your line, and then serving a hot roll as a side is a fantastic idea. So hold on, we have a long message here that I'm going to try to read from Kelly. They start cooking in their central kitchen at 6 a.m. Their first truck has to leave at 9. What is your advice on making mac and cheese and not having to turn to mush? I would definitely par cook it and rinse it the day before. Par cook it, shock it in like ice and water and rinse it with cold water. And then that's just going to be such a hard deal. Can you ship it separately? I probably would do this if you have time and space. Ship the pasta separate from the cheese sauce and have them mix it in batches as they need it at the school. I know that's double the pans, but it would vastly improve the quality of the pasta, and it wouldn't turn to mush. Because again, if you're having people over to your house for dinner, you're not going to make dinner 2 and 3 hours in advance and hold it in a hot box. You're just not going to do that. And so I know that it takes a lot of extra work and pans and all this sort of thing to ship it separately, but I would definitely cook it the day before, shock it, put it in a separate pan the day of, then the cheese sauce, and then mix it as needed with the cheese sauce on the line at your school. So everything is made at Central Kitchen and shipped to schools. I mean, if you guys can send it separately, they can ladle it on top or whatever. It would be a change in operations for you guys, and probably a learning curve, and try to get a lot of problem solving. I mean, I think it's really easy for me to sit here and tell you, like, this is my idea and you guys should totally do it. But really what it's going to be is what's going to be useful for your kitchen, what's going to work. And it might be several iterations of trying to figure out shipping things separately, or making sure that maybe you serve your pasta separate from your cheese sauce and later ladle your cheese sauce per portion on the line, or maybe you ship your cheese sauce and hot cheese sauce in a Cambro and pour it and your pasta in actual pans, and then pour the cheese sauce in batches onto the pasta. So I mean, it's easy for me to sit here and say this. It's going to be more difficult for you guys to work that out, but that's kind of where I would start. Okay. Okay, if you par cook it and shock and rinse it the day before, how do you use it the next day? You just heat it with hot water and cook it for? Yes, you can heat it up in hot water, or you can heat up the sauce or soup or whatever you're cooking to go with your pasta to like a boiling point, and pour it over to heat the pasta, or to throw it in the steamer for a little bit. But you just want to like end that cooking process, rinse all that starch off, and then do the cooking process again. I think there was one above that. Can you email the biscuit recipe? Yes. We will have an email sent out. And again, all of these recipes are on cookingforkids.ok.gov under the recipe tab. And there are over 200 standardized recipes. All these grain recipes that we've been talking about will be on there, except for that midnight chocolate breakfast bread. And we will email that out, and that'll be. Oh, yes, that's a good point. Yes. So the biscuit recipe on the Cooking for Kids is not in the instructions, not a drop biscuit. But this summer we did a lot of like practicing, different iterations of the biscuit. And we found that the drop biscuit, using the same recipe, just don't roll it out, just drop it on the pan, works out so well. And it comes out to be really fluffy and moist and amazing. So when you look at the recipe on the Cooking for Kids website, it will tell you to roll them out. Don't roll them out. Don't do it. We will change that recipe, but we just haven't had time yet. Just drop the biscuits on the pan. Yeah. So what's next? Yes.
I don't know if you mentioned that or not, our recipe or our website. So you're going to have a brand new website pretty soon. So we're hoping to make it even better, adding like a search function so you can find recipes easier. Right now there you have to scroll and scroll. So there's going to be some filtering options, and just trying to make it easier to use and give you more resources. So you might not seen any new things real recent, kind of holding off until that new site launches. But hopefully, like I said, in the next month or two, you're going to see the new website.
And also right now, all the recipes are grouped. with like whole grains and vegetables and entrees and fruits and different things. So as long as you're like looking at the header, and then the recipes are listed after. So make sure you do that. But yeah, lots of really great recipes there. Yes. We welcome all your feedback. We love feedback. We absolutely love feedback.
What is the cooking for kids.ok.gov?
And there are a lot of resources. I think, just a little plug here, under the resource tab, there are cycle menus on there that have links to recipes. There are past webinars if you missed any of them. There are resources plugging you into some of the best practices from other states and other school districts that we found all sorts of stuff on there. So the resource tab is underutilized, but there are a lot of resources on there. So
This webinar is about, you guys, I don't know if one of you registered training, everybody, if you're watching as a group and not everybody registered, just send me the who all watched it together, and we'll make sure.
oh, will they get credit for past webinars?
Yes, on the recorded ones, you go through and there'll be a quiz and there'll be
Really great.
type in my email address.
Oh, yeah, you should probably. I'll probably get it wrong. Is anybody doing anything super cool or have any good plans for our hacks for mastering this new 80% whole grain rich journey adventure that we're going on this next year? Also, Cass just posted her email in the chat. So if you guys are watching as a group, email her your names, and she'll be able to get you guys certificates.
We'll email the link of this and
The recording from the food safety webinar, I'll email that as well in case you had anybody that missed it.
Okay, you guys aren't making, you guys are just kind of staying the same. I think that, this last year, these last couple of years have been really interesting as far as like having waivers and different things like this. But I really do have to applaud all of you guys for kind of sticking to the basics as far as like not going overboard on using, white flour and all sorts of stuff. So great job on that. So you won't have to have a huge change on that. It's just offering more of. Okay, let's see here. Okay, this last question. If we are serving, say, whole grain corn dogs and we serve mac and cheese also, does the noodle in the mac and cheese have to be whole grain? 80% of the serving offerings have to be whole grain rich. And for further clarification on that, I would absolutely contact your state consultant. I can talk about, a lot of things, but when it comes down to nitty gritty, I always like to refer you to them because they have the latest and greatest information on all of that. And also they're the ones doing reviews. So you want to talk to them because I'm not going to be doing your reviews. I would hate to tell you the wrong thing and then, you all get in trouble. So go ahead and talk to your state consultant. They're going to be the ones who have all the information on that. So, and they're really great. They're really great. They're here to help you guys. They're wonderful. We talk to them all the time. So they love hearing from you guys and also, take your feedback very seriously, which I really appreciate. So.
I'm gonna do is delete the post, right, this post was,
the, minutes.
Yeah. Surveys are a really great way for us to receive feedback on, what webinars we do, and then how intense the training is, and what questions we have answered or what questions we need to answer. So we really, really appreciate you guys doing the survey.
We'll continue to have more webinars throughout the school year. So if you guys have any webinar ideas, drop them in the chat box. too.
Yes.
what we need training. Hiring, training.
Let us know. Debbie?
We love doing these. I love doing these classes. I think they're really great. I love all the feedback I'm hearing from you guys about what you guys are doing. And it's a great way to kind of end the summer, because I've been with you guys, or a lot of you guys, for 6 weeks during the summer, which is fantastic, but it's a great kind of wrap up and to hear from even more people than what we do in summer training. So I really appreciate all your feedback and all your ideas, and any sort of ideas for future webinars. We would love to hear it. What do you guys want to hear us talk about?
No, they don't have any more questions. Yeah, if you finish the survey, that's all.
That's all I have. That's all I have. Of course. So yeah, just if you're listening in a group, remember to email Cass. So you guys can get all your certificates and get all those CEUs. And then if you have any further questions, there is a tab on the website for questions that you can submit, or you have Cass's email. Yeah, email Cass.
We'll see them that way.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you guys have a great start to school. We will see you guys next webinar.
One more plug, if you did attend summer training and you're interested in a chef consult, we have a couple of spots left. Like, email me, same email address, and let me know. We can get you an application. We're gonna be starting those up pretty soon.
Awesome. Okay. Well, you guys have a great afternoon. We'll talk soon. Bye.